Today we're talking about handling objections. Now, I'm going to look for a lot of feedback from you guys. I'm actually offering this training because it was a request that one of the agents emailed me. Quite often in my webinars, I ask you guys for feedback, for questions, ways that I can improve. This was one that came to me, and I thought, you know what, that's a good idea. Let's put together a training on handling objections. But like all good products, it's dependent upon your feedback to improve. This is the first kind of trial run, so help me out. Tell me what kind of objections. If you've got common objections, ways so that we can discuss those, we can raise it up for everybody to share here online. You can get some good feedback on what's working for other agents, and I can give you my insights as well. When you're typing these in on the webinar dashboard panel, there's a little question panel that you can type in questions. Use this to type in your the objections that trip you up most often, or common ones that you see frequently, so that we can use this as feedback. If I don't get a lot of participation from you in this realm, then this might be a very short training today, okay? Good. I'm already getting things typed in. So go ahead and keep typing them in. There's a few things that I want to cover first, and then we'll go back and address these as they come up. So take a moment, help me out, give me some feedback. And if you're watching this from the YouTube video because you weren't able to attend the live training and you have other things to talk about that we didn't bring up today, then please send me an email. There is my email address right there. Send me an email and say, hey, this is one I run into all the time. Please incorporate this into your next training. Okay, first of all, let's identify 3 different categories of resistance. Not everything is an objection that we can't overcome, or, well, there's just different areas of resistance. Okay, so let's talk about these. The first is an objection. Now, this is positive versus negative. In other words, we really like this house, but we're not sure on the price of it. It's a little bit out of our price range. Or we really like the house, but we don't like that it's a 1-car garage. We really hope for a 2-car garage or a 3-car garage. But otherwise, we love the neighborhood, everything else. Okay, this would fall under the category of an objection. Now, there's different ways to solve all of these, and we're going to get into 6 different ways to handle different areas of resistance. What I want you to do right now is just help you understand that, number one, you don't have to own all the problems out there. If a house doesn't have a 3-car garage, it's only got a 1-car garage, there's some positive and negatives about it. And again, we'll talk about ways to handle this, but this objection isn't one that you have to solve. Okay, and most objections, actually, you don't have to solve. We'll tell you how to deal with them here shortly. Another one is doubt. They're just not sure. They can't move ahead and make a decision. They have lack of information or lack of evidence. Now, if you have attended some of my trainings, like, for example, last week, I believe we talked about working with buyers. One of the big reasons, in fact, one of the comments typed in by our participating agents was, I don't like asking for that exclusive buyer-broker agreement up front because it makes me uncomfortable to ask for that commitment when they don't know me, they haven't worked with me, and yet on the other side of the coin, nobody would ever take a listing for a month or 2 without signing an exclusive right to sell listing agreement. They would never put it up for sale, whether they really knew that client or not. They probably just went out, did one listing presentation, wanted the client to sign the forms right there and start listing their property. And yet the most common excuse we use for buyers not doing the same thing is, well, you know, we want to be fair and give them a chance to get to know us first. Yet we don't do that with sellers. And the main reason we had that doubt ourselves, the reason why I experienced that doubt when I'm trying to sell agents on this concept of get agency for your buyers right up front, they have doubt or they have lack of information. And so when I teach them how to do a buyer presentation just like they would normally do a listing presentation, all of a sudden that doubt evaporates and that category of resistance is resolved. Okay, so sometimes you can provide more information and that helps people make a better decision. The third category of resistance is indifference. Now, if it's indifference, thankfully we don't run into this a whole lot. The big thing that you have to question here is, I mean, if they really don't care, are they committed to this process? And there's some simple ways that you can weed out this category of resistance, and that is, if you're taking a buyer out, we get them pre-qualified first. They're not going to call a lender. They're not going to give their social security number over the phone, their birth date, some fairly private information. They're not going to give that stuff out if they're indifferent about whether or not they want to buy a home. That's just not a step that people typically take. They won't sign your exclusive buyer-broker agreement if they're not serious. So when I run into agents that are challenged with indifference, my question is, have we asked for that commitment? Because if we've asked for it, if we've asked them to sign the exclusive buyer-broker agreement and they're not quite sure if they want to or not, well, maybe that's a commitment problem. We need to help them on that regard. So let's look at the six steps that we can cover in addressing some of these objections. And by the way, I only have 2 objections typed in so far, so please continue to give me some feedback here. All right, 6 steps. The first one, now maybe these aren't steps, maybe these are tools. Would be a better way to name this, but 6 tools. The first one is a pause. Okay, so let's look at one of your questions, see if this applies to any of them. Okay, let's say that, for example, I don't know that this applies to any of the questions that are out right now, but somebody says, we really like this home, but it's only got 3 bedrooms. Now, one of the temptations that we have as agents is to immediately jump in and say, well, yeah, but you could put bunk beds in this room and still make it work, or there's room to build onto the house because the lot's pretty good sized, or something like that. We don't have to solve this problem. Sometimes when you just pause for a minute, people will take care of it themselves. And they say, you know what, we really don't like the fact that this house just has 3 bedrooms. Okay. You don't need to solve that problem. It's an issue that exists simply with the house. And so this would be one of those things that's an objection. You're not going to magically solve this problem, but then the other spouse could say, yeah, but I love it. It's really close to my work commute, and we can make it work with bunk beds or something like that. Okay, so before you jump in and that initial gut reaction, that knee-jerk reaction, that you want to solve everybody's problem, resist that a little bit. Now, guys, some of this stuff is going to have to come naturally for you. The reason why I want to bring it up today is hopefully by watching this training, a little bit of this will sink into your subconscious. I don't expect anybody, when somebody raises an objection, to think, what were those 6 tools that we talked about in training, and which one of those would apply here? I don't think that's going to happen. However, if you can just let yourself be more comfortable, that you don't have to be the one to rush in and rescue everything. And in fact, that's one of the last tools that we're going to use today. So there's simple pause, and sometimes the problem just goes away by itself. Next, acknowledge it. For example, in that case of it doesn't have enough bedrooms. That's an acknowledgement. You don't have to be stupid. Like, I've been to training programs that say, so what you're telling me is that this home doesn't have enough bedrooms? And that kind of stuff irritates the crap out of me. And I hate it when people regurgitate that back to me. I don't know how you guys feel about it. But when they repeat it to make sure that they're not deaf, like word for word, to me that's kind of irritating. Put some thought into it if you're going to do that kind of thing. If it's going to be, so what you're saying is that, what? You don't just repeat exactly what they said to you. You've got 3 children. Let's see, you've got 2 children, so help me understand what you need here. You've got a room for yourself, room for your kids. Did you need another bedroom? Okay, that would be a way to acknowledge it, repeat the question. Make sure that you understand what their real concern is. Don't just repeat it to be daft, all right? Make sure that you understand what it is that they really want. So help me understand why you need more bedrooms, all right? And that's great. That's good information for us to have so that we can stop showing them 3-bedroom homes. All right. The third tool that we use is isolate. Okay. Isolate their concerns. All right. So I understand this doesn't have as many bedrooms as you like. Is there any other things, besides that, how do you feel about this home? Okay, that helps you understand. They say, well, we don't really like the commute. Okay, so the commute and the bedrooms. Besides that, how do you feel about this home? Well, it's out of our price range. Okay, so with all of those things considered, does that rule this home out? And if it does, why are we still here? Does that make sense? Now, I keep using the same example over and over here just to give you a quick idea of how this would work. Once I go through the 6 different tools, let's talk about some ways that these would apply possibly to the actual questions you guys are typing in, which, by the way, I'm up to 4. So good job. Keep them coming. All right. Question. This is, in my mind, one of my favorite ways to resolve an objection, because number one, it helps educate us a little bit more, but it helps them come up with their own solutions. They know their life better than we do. Okay, so if you bought this home, how would you resolve it? You know, we're not sure, it's only got the 3 bedrooms. Okay, yeah, I understand that's a concern, so I've acknowledged it. If you bought this home, how would you resolve that concern? You know, and that's one way for them to think, well, we could add bunk beds or something else. But it helps them think, you know what, would this home, is it still worth it for us? Understanding that it's limited in some ways. All right. Answering their question. This home only has 3 bedrooms. Jumping in and saying, well, use bunk beds or add on a room or something like that, that's your last line of defense, because you've really passed up some important things here. You've passed up a question or an opportunity here with isolating for them to educate you on what else do they think about the house, or what else do they think about this objection. It helps them find their own solutions. You rule out this chance for you to learn more about some of their resources that they already have. So when you just throw out that answer, in a lot of cases that can harm you. Okay, so when I told you at the start of this that you don't have to be the guru that knows everything and has an answer for everything, hopefully that helps you feel more comfortable, more at ease when you're dealing with objections. And then the last step is to reclose. All right, so now let's address some of the questions that you have. Okay, here's one that came up. Regarding listings, the concern that they have is, I want to interview other agents. Now, with this one, I'm going to throw this. This is a great one, by the way. This comes up fairly consistently. When you're doing a listing presentation, you go to close them, and they throw this out, I want to interview other agents. I would love to hear what you guys have to say, but first of all, seeing these 6 steps in front of us, how are some ways that we can address this? Good, I've got a 5th comment coming in, or a 5th question for us to look at. What are some of these ways that would work? I want to interview some other agents. Now, you can pause for a little bit. To me, I wouldn't use that one here. I want to understand more. Okay? So I could acknowledge that. I could say, okay. And jump right down to the question, do you already have some other appointments scheduled? Okay. Then I would question it again. What is it that you are hoping to learn from talking to more agents? Okay, and if it comes down to it, with a very few people, they've scheduled an appointment already, and their integrity demands that they keep that appointment. Okay, so you are not going to resolve that objection. Let's see. Okay, one of the answers that somebody typed in here is, what are you looking for in an agent? That would be a great question. Okay, so again, our knee-jerk tendency is to try to sell, sell, sell. You know, we try to close them, and they say, well, we're looking for another agent. Okay, I'll give you a discount if you work with me right now. All right, and a lot of agents do that. They instantly start cutting their commissions. Gather some information first. Find out a little bit more. I think that's a great answer that somebody typed in and shared with us. What are you looking for in an agent? All right. Does my program that I've outlined here for you today seem to meet all of your needs and expectations? Okay. So if it does meet all of your expectations, we could jump down here to reclose. Then what would hold you back from moving ahead with me today? And I would be happy to go ahead, take the burden off your shoulders of canceling with these other agents. That's one of my jobs, and I can give them both a call if you'll give me their numbers, and I can go ahead and let them know that you've already committed to me, or that you've already listed your home with me. Okay, so again, take a chance to ask some questions, understand more. You'll get so much further ahead than jumping right down to trying to answer something. So you found out what they're looking for in an agent. They wanted to interview other agents. You say, you know, what are you looking for? Does my program that I've outlined for you have everything that you would want? You try to reclose them, and if they say, you know what, we've made a commitment to these guys, we're gonna keep our commitment. Okay, that's fair. I completely understand. I respect that. Here's just a general rule for you guys when you're dealing with objections. You've got to respect other people. Okay, I've been to trainings and I've heard people in sales attempts almost ridicule somebody, almost make them, it's like they're trying to make them feel stupid for their thoughts. And you know what? Maybe they are severely uneducated. You know, because that is, if I go back, sorry, no, I'd have to go back more slides than I want to. That was that second one, that second instance of concerns that we talked about, is that people just don't have the information. But it doesn't mean that they're stupid. Okay, it just means that we need to help them understand better so that they can get over that obstacle themselves. All right, they want to interview 3 agents. Maybe it's because their dad told them you must interview 3 agents. If you don't, you're stupid. Okay, we made the biggest mistake of our lives by just hiring the first guy that we talked to, and he was terrible. And so they've got their dad's words ringing in their ears. Don't commit to somebody unless you've talked to 3 people. Okay, what you want to try to do, rather than make them feel stupid for listening to their father, which is a losing scenario for you no matter how way you go about that, you want to respect that. Say, you know what, because you asked a couple questions and they said, well, you know what, everything you've got sounds good, but my dad said this. Oh, okay. I totally understand that, and I respect you listening to your dad. It's always good to listen to your parents' advice. Here's what I'll do for you. If you like everything that I've got and you feel good working with me otherwise, so now we're jumping back to this isolate scenario, would you give me the chance to be the last person that you talk to? I understand that you've got this high level of ethics. You've committed to some people already. I want to see if you would commit to allowing me to be the last one in your door again. So we've talked now. Go ahead and hear what these other agents have to say. When is your last appointment? Okay, Tuesday at 5. Could I come Tuesday at 6:30 or 7? And I'll just be the last one you talk about, or I could come Wednesday, whichever works best for you. And any concerns that have been raised by working with those other agents, I want you to know that my commitment to be the #1 agent is firm. Okay? Would you go ahead and allow me that opportunity? All right. So you've heard their concern. You've asked some questions to understand. They do like you. They like your presentation. They like what you have to offer. They've got a legitimate reason for still not signing with you because they're listening to their father's advice. You do a little bit of isolation questioning, saying, okay, if I can be the last one, you know, would you give me the chance to at least come and talk to you again? If you can be that last one in the door, if they'll make that commitment to you, then you've got a really good chance of signing that. Okay, so I think that's a great concern. Please let me know, whoever typed that in, that concern. If I want to interview other agents, please let me know if this answer is satisfactory to you, if some of these steps or tools would work for you in that. Okay, here's one that's been typed in. Let me read some of the new ones that have come up. Okay, there's been a couple good ones come in. This next one, actually the next two, deal with this. Everyone wants a discount in the commission. A 6% commission, that's too much. Or can you cut your commission? All right. Now, this is one. This is one where a pause could actually help. Okay, and it's going to be a little bit, a little bit uncomfortable. So somebody says, you know what? We've been talking to a couple of other agents. We like what you have. However, this guy over here, Agent Jones, said he would do it for 5%. Would you match that? Now again, quickly I could jump down to the answer and say, absolutely. Let's do it. And I could lose 1% of my commission very quickly and easily. All right? With a little bit of understanding of these first 4 strategies or these first 4 tools, I might be able to save that 1%. Now, giving myself a 30% raise, that's not a bad idea, right? If I could get good at this and keep my commissions higher, I could work a third less and still make the same amount of money. See how that works? Okay, so just walking away from your commission. And yes, it's nice that equity gives you the freedom to do that. I know brokerages that don't give you that freedom. They just say flat out, look, we're taking half your check. You don't charge anything less than 6%. If you do, you're going to get in trouble because you're taking money out of our pockets. At equity, you pay a flat fee. You can be as competitive as you want to be. Doesn't mean that you have to give away the house, okay? So you can address this one. Somebody says, so-and-so is offering it for 5%. You could simply say, they're going to do all this for you for 5%. Okay? And then you could pause. Now, if you've got a pretty aggressive marketing program, and if you've taken my listing training, there's a whole bunch of things in there that you can do to really make it pop, to really make it stand out, some of the things that you're offering. Okay, so you acknowledge it. You can even question, are they going to do all of this? For 5%, they're going to get it on over 900 websites nationwide. Do they spend X amount of money? You know, and you can talk about all the different marketing programs that you have. Do they get it listed, reposted every single day in the local Craigslist or whatever it is, you know, local newspapers or online venues? Do they have a 24/7 call capture service? Do they feature it on their website? These are all questions that you could ask instead of giving away a 1%. And the last question you could ask is, well, do you think some of these extra services that I'm providing, getting you that extra exposure, would be worth the 1%? And if they say, no, I don't think it is. Okay. If you don't, and you simply, you know, then you could isolate it. Is this the one thing that would determine whether or not you hired me? And if they say, yeah, we don't have the equity. If we got to find an agent that would do it for 5%, or we can't do it with an agent. Well, there's your answer. Are you willing to work for 5% or not? But typically, if you ask some questions, you acknowledge their concern. You know what? I understand that cost is a factor that everybody's going to consider. My goal is to bring as much value to that as possible. So let me ask you a few questions. Do you think that these extra services that I provide would be worth that extra 1%, that extra exposure that you get? Do you think that would be worth the extra 1%? My commitment to you to communicate with you on a weekly basis and send you copies of everything that I'm doing for the marketing so that you have peace of mind that I'm out there working hard. You don't have to worry about, you know, did I just hire a guy that's going to disappear and, you know, just spend his time golfing or something? Does that peace of mind, is that worth a little bit extra for you? Sometimes these questions, using these different skills together, can help get you that 30% more money. Okay? I've had a few other comments typed in here. Let me scan down here and read these really quick. Okay. All righty. Let's go ahead and look at our next scenario. By the way, if you've typed in these questions and I'm not giving you a satisfactory answer, something that you feel comfortable that you could take home with you and incorporate into your practice, please type it in and say, you know what, I've tried that, it doesn't work. Let me know. We'll throw it out to the rest of the agents on with us and get some of their feedback about what works for them. Okay, here's a good one. Many clients want to send lowball offers or try and find the absolute best deal on the market, which makes them question whether they should purchase or not. And this is a tough one with buyers. Okay, they want to shop everything to know that they're getting the best deal. But of course, with a little bit of experience, you learn very quickly. Once they take the time to shop everything, they miss out on the best deals. The best deal will come, they'll see it and say, but I still want to see these other ones. Well, okay, this one's going to be gone. All right, this is a tough one. Okay, again, you need to find out more. Okay, this comes up to a little bit of 1 and 3. Are they really committed? That's the indifference challenge the third challenge that we face. The first challenge was an absolute, it's an actual objection, and maybe it's a little bit incorporates the second one where they don't have enough information to really move ahead. Okay, this is where we can help them. And you can say, you know what, I totally understand. We're going to acknowledge it. Okay, I understand that you want to get the very best deal on the market. Unfortunately, that puts you in a tough position because the very best deals go fast. You understand that, right? Okay, so understanding that the best deals go fast, but that you want to see everything out there, we do have some tools that can help you with that. And in this, I'm kind of jumping down to the answer right here with this one because I feel like I need to give them more information to help them get off the fence, because sitting on that fence to me is simply a lack of information. So I feel like I need to give them more here. So I'm just going to let them know, understand your concern, understand that you want to see everything. However, you do realize that the best deals are going to go quickly. Here we're sitting on top of one. You guys, this house, and here we could jump over to isolate and say, do you like this house? You know, if you hadn't seen any other homes, if there weren't any other homes out there on the market, would this house make you happy? Would you be happy here with your family? Well, yeah, but we still want to see other ones. Okay, great. I've got some good information now. All right. I understand you want to see some really good deals. You guys realize that this is a good deal. It may not be the very best deal out there, right? Right. Okay. You want to see everything? Here's what we'll do. I'll run a search, every home like this. In fact, usually, if you watch my training on working with buyers, I've done this already. So I've already ran the search. You guys have seen everything that's for sale online. Everything that's out there, you guys had in your inbox yesterday. You sorted through them. This was one of your top 5. Seeing it compared to the other 4 that we've seen today, this one really stands out. You guys have admitted that if it weren't for the fact that you haven't seen all the other homes, you understand this is a good deal. Thankfully, we have some things that can help you with your decision today. Okay, I understand you want to see some other homes, but you don't want to lose this good deal that's right here. So here's the purchase contract. Here's how it works. We've got time in the contract to do our due diligence. That's typically getting inspections done. But we can also use that time to find out if this is really the best deal for you. So what I would recommend is let's make an offer on this home, and then before our due diligence deadline, let's go ahead and go out one more time or 2 more times. Let's do it quickly, though. Let's not waste time with this. Let's go out and see what other homes are out there on the market so that you can make sure that you're comfortable with this decision. All right, so that's one of the answers that I use to get people off the fence in making an offer on a home, because the purchase contract gives us 2 or 3 weeks with our due diligence deadline to go ahead and make sure that everything's fine with the property and that we really want to move forward. We can use that to not bypass good deals. Okay, that's what I personally use on that one. Okay, this other one, that's typed in says, I just want to see the home. I'm not looking for a lender. And I'm not sure if that means a lender or an agent. Maybe you wear both hats or something. You're duly licensed. Sorry, I'm just reading some of the other comments that we've got here. Okay. So let's talk about this one. I just want to see the home, not looking for an agent. Now, if this is one of our listings, then we have a fiduciary duty to go show it. So I'm trying to imagine a scenario where this comes up. Let's say somebody calls off of my website. They've seen one of my listings online. I ask them the all-important question, do you already have an agent representing you as a buyer? Or do you already have an agent that you've committed to as a buyer? And they say, no, I don't. But you know what? Not looking for an agent, just want to see the home. Okay, I totally understand. I just have to ask that question. It's a legal requirement of me, so I know how much I can get involved to help you. If they say, yes, I do have an agent, then I cut them off right there. I say, fantastic. Have your agent call me and schedule it. Can I just do it with you? Actually, no. Have your agent call me and schedule it. Okay? Because there I've got to be all business-like. I can't get involved in a conversation scheduling stuff with somebody else's client. I don't want to go there. But I've ascertained in this instance that they do not have an agent. They don't want an agent. They just want to see the home. If it's my listing, great. Here's when I'm available. Does that work for you? Okay, I'll meet you out there. By the way, and I can just drop a little hint, by the way, when I come out there, I'll bring you some other information that might help you out as a buyer. Okay, whatever. Let's go. Folks, over the home, somebody flat out tells you, I don't want an agent. You're not going to change their mind over the phone. Go meet them personally, build a little bit of rapport with them as you walk around the house together, and then you can use some of these tools here. So, quick question for you. You mentioned you don't want an agent. Tell me why that is. They just cost money, and I don't know, I think I can do it on my own. I've bought homes before. Okay, well, there's a little bit of lack of information there. You can help them understand. If you're going to answer, at least make sure that you're giving them the right answers. Okay, help them understand through your buying program how you don't cost them any money or whatever. The agent that typed in that question clarified it just a little bit. He said it's to help get them qualified to buy a home. So if we address it in that way, I just want to see the home, I'm not looking for a lender. Let's say that, let's say that we've met with them and they want to go see a home. We don't know if they're pre-qualified or not. Again, if it's our own listing, we have a fiduciary duty to show that home. It's our duty to our seller, not to this guy, the buyer. So we go out and we show them the home that we've got listed. If it's just some random call off the internet, again, my advice to you following my buyer training is I try to set up a buyer appointment with them first. I try to give them a buyer presentation. Sometimes I can say, you know what, I've got this great buyer presentation. I'd love to show you that home. Could we meet out there, and could I take an extra maybe 15 minutes with you and show you my buyer presentation? A lot of times they'll say, sure, why not? So I'll bring my buyer presentation. Again, I just do it on my iPad. We go through that really quickly there at the house, and in there I talk about reasons why they want to get pre-qualified, because it's worth thousands of dollars to them, and I share some personal stories about how that can help them. So I want to help this person make those first steps, but I want to help them as my client. So I want to give them a buyer presentation. That extra information resolves that indifference challenge, which is the challenge number 3. It helps them commit more, which is the issue with challenge number 2. So anyways, hopefully that helps you out. I'm not sure if that really addressed your question there or not. Okay, here's the question that's typed in. Isn't it our duty to the seller to qualify the buyers before a showing? Now, that's a great question. And the answer is not necessarily. Okay? If they call up and they say, we want to see this house, And we say, fine, are you pre-qualified? Now, if our sellers have said, you know what, we're highly private people, we don't want anybody to see the home unless they're really qualified, okay, we can do that. Then I can tell them over the phone, with my fiduciary duty, the sellers have requested that I not show it to anybody unless they're pre-qualified. Okay? If the sellers haven't requested that, and you can even ask the sellers if you want that type of a request, if that's the way you like to do business, ask the sellers, but it needs to be at the seller's express command. If it's not at the seller's express command, then the sellers can have a legitimate complaint against you. Let's say somebody calls up to see the home, and you say, all right, are you pre-qualified? Are you working with the lender yet? No, we just want to see the home. Okay, I understand that, but it's my practice to make sure that everybody that sees the home could actually be a buyer, so it's not putting the sellers out. I'm going to need to make sure that you get pre-qualified first. And they say, screw you. Hang up the phone, and then they go out and drive by the neighborhood and knock on the door and say, hey, we tried to schedule it with your agent. He wouldn't show it to us unless we're pre-qualified. Now your seller's upset at you because here's a potential buyer, somebody that wants to buy their home, and you're acting as a gatekeeper. You're forcibly keeping people away from the house. Again, if they haven't given you that express instruction, then that isn't your fiduciary duty to screen people before you get them into the home. Okay? If that's what they want, then great. And if the seller calls you up upset later on, hey, I've got somebody here, you say, yes, that's what you told me to do at the start. Do you not want me to do that anymore? Because I'm happy to do whatever works for you. And then it's back on them. But you don't want somebody having a fiduciary duty claim against you because you are actively keeping people away from the home. Hopefully that helps. That addresses that question there. Okay, he says it makes sense. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next one. Okay, I'm guessing that this would be in working with a buyer. The objection is, I found a for sale by owner. The owner wants me to talk with him without my agent. All right, let's look at our different tools that we have here and figure out how to solve this. Okay, we're working with a buyer. Now, every buyer that I work with, I have an exclusive buyer-broker agreement. If I don't, I'm not working with them. Okay, so first of all, my concern that they're going to cut me out of a commission is reduced in a huge way. I've done my whole buyer presentation with them. They understand all the value that they're going to get from me. They understand everything that they do. In my buyer presentation, I specifically address working with a for sale by owner, how they still pay me the 3%. The for sale by owner saves some money. They understand that, and if they don't understand it, it's my job to educate them. Okay, but my client doesn't have to pay me that money. Never had a client have to pay me out of pocket. All right, never had a buyer client have to pay me out of pocket. Let me refrain there. All right, so found a for sale by owner. The owner wants me to talk with him without my agent. I would first want to question it. Okay, that's concerning to me. Why would this owner want to talk to you without your agent? Is he afraid that I'm going to help you avoid what? Is there something that he's trying to hide from a professional? Why do you think he would want this? Okay, raising that question simply in their mind, because people typically think, you know what, the for sale by owner's there, he doesn't want to deal with an agent, maybe he's trying to save money, yeah, I can just go talk with him. But why? Why does he not want an agent to be there? Because there are specifically for sale by owners out there that have not listed with agents because they've interviewed agents. An agent says, you have to disclose this problem. You've got termites. Your foundation is cracked. And what they've done is puttied it and painted it or something like that, and they don't want to disclose it. Their agent said, you have to. Okay, then we won't hire an agent. We'll do it ourselves and actively commit fraud. All right? So you got to raise that question to your clients. That's concerning. Why would they want to talk with you without your agent present? Is it, are they afraid of you finding out information, or what do you think it is? And your client, then it's back on them. I don't know. Well, I would be very concerned about that. My job is to represent you, to look after your best interests. If somebody doesn't want me there, then it can't be for your best interest, because they're not wanting me to look after you, is basically what they're saying. So my response to them, I go back and say, you know what? I understand you want to talk to me without my agent, but he's here to help me. Okay? Give them the tools, help them understand. Usually questions can help them the very best. All right, and by the way, like always, if my answers don't help you out with your question, let me know. Okay, here's another one, fairly similar to the last one. It's a buyer you're talking with. I don't want to work with an agent. I can sell my home myself, or I can find a home myself. Again, this might be a question of how much information do they have. Usually with I can sell my home myself, they acquire information over time. That tells them that they can't, which is why so many agents are doing their for sale by owner marketing campaigns, because these people that think that way are quickly educated by the market that that's not so. You're not going to sell your home yourself, or if you do, you're going to run into a lot of problems. You want to understand the paperwork. There's a lot of questions and concerns that come up with it. Marketing gets very expensive. It's just a hassle to be there and show the home all the time at everybody's beck and call. They learn all of that stuff through the School of Hard Knocks. So if you've watched my For Sale by Owner training, I think that addresses most of the concerns with I don't want to work with an agent, I can sell my home myself. Because our job there is we go and we educate people with our For Sale by Owner presentation, an education that otherwise they would only acquire through the School of Hard Knocks, and then it's just a question of who's smiling and dialing that day to land in their lap right at the point that they're fed up with it. My objective is to educate them about how tiresome the process can be so that they don't have to learn through the School of Hard Knocks. They can learn it from my presentation and make the decision on the spot to hire me, or at least put me head and shoulders above the rest of the competition because I come across as a valued advisor to them. As far as the question of I don't want to work with an agent, I can find a home myself. Okay, let's talk about that one. Again, if you do your buyer presentation, I think it resolves that concern. The buyer presentation lets them know that, they would really have to be ignorant to listen to that whole presentation and say, no thanks, I can find one myself. Because in my presentation I talk almost nothing about finding a home. The value that we bring as agents, at least for me in my experience, I'm rarely the person that finds the home for my clients. They've got the internet at home. They're doing their own searches. You can't stop them from doing their own searches. They love getting on there and, looking at all the homes. It's like Christmas time. If you guys remember the last time you bought a home, you were in the market, maybe it's an upgrade or something like that, or you're moving to a town that you really like, or you just got an exciting job, it is like Christmas time to get on the internet and unwrap all of these new homes. It's like looking at dreams, okay? And yeah, some are ugly dreams, and you close them up quick and you look on to the next one. People will do that for hours. Most of the time, my buyers find the home themselves. That is not where my value comes in. My value comes in so many different ways with my buyers. It's not that, okay? Here's an agent saying he wants to charge 7%. Now, I've done that in the past. The question is, what value have you provided to provide 7%? In my listing presentation, I talk about that. I used to do a 7% listing. I had to deal with a local moving company. They would come and move my clients. And I would just say, you know what? I've got a 5%, a 6%, a 7% option. Here's what they all provide. Which one fits your situation the best? And I'd say, you know what? This 7%, some people really love to be pampered. I personally love having movers move my stuff for me. I hate dinging up the walls in a new house. If that's what you want, fantastic. Again, you want to charge 7%? I've got no problem with that. With me, the problem is how do I market it, and I've got to provide some extra value for that. Okay, let's see. Let me see what other things have been typed in. Okay, that's all of the questions that you guys have typed in, the objections. Let me see if I had a few of them here. Here's one that nobody brought up. This is one that we seem to get fairly often. The listing objection. Some of these you guys have mentioned in yours. The listing objection. Well, you know, you've just given your listing presentation and they come back and say, hey, that sounds good. Let us talk it over and we'll get back with you with our decision. Ouch. This is a hard one. It sucks to hear that because you know if you've been through this, you're going to be playing telephone tag. They're not going to answer your calls. They're not going to respond to your voicemails. You're going to think that it's because they hate you, that they hired somebody else, and really it's because they're busy. Their cat got ran over. They got bad news from work. They slipped and put their back out, and talking with agents is the last thing on their priority list. But you never know, and you always jump to the worst possible conclusion. They hate me. They're hiring another agent. And so you quit doing your follow-up calls. Anyways, it's not a fun position to put yourself in when you've done your presentation and they don't want to sign with you. Okay? I hate that. So how do we get over this? Well, first of all, if you've watched my listing presentation, the number one rule is one of the reasons they want to talk it over is without you there is because you've been there too long already. Get out of their house earlier. Do your presentation, be done, contract signed, everything in 1 hour or less, which means you probably have to trim some stuff out of your presentation. You got to get more comfortable delivering it. If you can get that done in 40 minutes and say, all right, that's my marketing program. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like that'll get your home sold? Fantastic. If you feel good about working with me as an agent, here's the paperwork that I need. Okay? Now, if you're at 40 minutes, you've got more time. If they've got some questions, if they say, we'll talk it over and get back with you, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, okay, if there's concerns right now, please bring them up to me. That's one of my, that's why I'm here. Here to help you guys out. What kind of concerns do you have that you would want to discuss? Okay, I want to ask a question, see if there really is something, and you know, if it is, well, we're actually going to meet with 2 other agents. That's a whole different problem. Excuse me. Let me go back to our slide. That's a whole different problem than, hey, we like it. Let's talk it over and get back with you. They've just used that as an excuse to put me off so they can talk to some other people. That, you know, if I'm doing a pushy sales pitch on this and I don't really understand what their problem is, I'm not going to get anywhere. Okay, so avoid the pushy sales pitches. Ask more questions. But the key thing here, really, the number one way to avoid this objection is don't have it come up in the first place because you didn't take 2 hours doing your presentation. All right? Do your presentation in 40 minutes. Most of the time, this won't come up. Let me know if you have more questions on that. I'm going to move on to this next one. Okay, we have a friend that does real estate. All right. Completely understand that. Understand the value of friendship. Let me just throw this out there. And this is one where you could question, okay, and say, all right, do you feel uncomfortable sometimes working with friends? You know, what if they don't do a good job? With me, I don't want to ask them that question because that makes me uncomfortable. I just throw it out there as a supposition. So, you know what? Some people have a problem working with their good friends. They, they don't want to mix business and friendship because if their friend doesn't do the best job for them, I mean, you've seen my program here. Do you know anybody else that does as good a job for buyers or sellers like I do, even your friend? And if they say, well, I just don't know, say, tell you what, go ahead and talk to your friend. The problem is if they don't do everything that I'm doing, then does it jeopardize your friendship at all? Because I don't want that to happen. All right? I don't want it to jeopardize your friendship. And so a lot of people will choose to work with me over their friends because they value their friendship more than that business. and it's simply explaining that to their friend. Now, I've had people list with me, excuse me, I had one person list with me, and they said, can you keep it off the market for a little while, which of course I have to do in writing, but can you keep it off the market for a little while because we've got a good friend spending Thanksgiving dinner with us, and he's a real estate agent, and we don't want to let him know before Thanksgiving that we've listed it with somebody else. Now, that's a pretty good friend if you're spending Thanksgiving dinner together, and yet they still chose to work with me for exactly that reason. They liked their friend, but they didn't have confidence in his ability to sell. Now, that leads us into a whole different topic of discussion, because he might have been a fantastic realtor, and yet with 95% of real estate agents, their sphere of influence marketing program is so pitiful or flat out non-existent that even though they're great at their job, their best friends don't know about it. So again, 95% of agents are that way. They might be really good at their job. Their friends just don't know it. But they've sat through your presentation. They know how good you are. Now, are you going to win all of these? No, you're not. Being a pushy jerk, is it going to help you? Absolutely not. So just say, you know what, I completely understand. Here's the concern that a lot of people have in working with friends. It puts a stress on their relationship. My concern is if your friend doesn't do everything that I do, and I have the most comprehensive marketing program I know of, if your friend doesn't do everything that I do, is that going to harm your relationship? Now, a last-ditch effort that you can do here is we can legally pay a referral fee. I said, tell you what, I understand you want to value your friend. There's two ways we can do this. I can actually pay him a referral fee. I can give him 10%. Now, the standard is 25%, but you can negotiate whatever you want, because right here you're not negotiating with that agent. You're talking with their friend. So I'm happy to give your friend a referral fee. He'll make money for you guys buying a home, and you guys can still have the very, very best service. Does that sound fair? It's kind of a win-win. All right, that's one of the ways that you can handle that one. We talked about this one. They want to talk to some more agents. Another company said they'd lower their commission. We've talked about that one. We want to try for sell by owner a while. I think we've talked about that one. So are there any other questions? I'll give you guys a second to type in any other questions or concerns that you have. Meanwhile, I am going to go back to the start. Okay, and I'm just going to reiterate what we talked about at the very first. There's different categories of resistance. Not all of them, in fact, most of them do not require you to jump in and answer it. For most of the time, there's positive and negatives about both. You know, for example, that commission. Somebody's charging less than you. You could not budge on your commission if you don't want to. You could have a firm personal policy that you never discount your commission. There's no problem with that. And you say, yep, they do charge less. Okay? However, there's a negative to that as well. They don't provide anywhere near the type of value that I do. Okay? And then you can let them resolve it themselves. Doubt, lack of information or evidence. If that's it, we can provide them with more information. But basically, if we're using these 6 different tools in our toolbox, then we can, most of the time, make great progress. We can build deeper relationships rather than it turning into a sparring session between you and your client. And even though you have all the right answers, this is one industry. I told my wife the other day, I said, the client isn't always right. In fact, they're almost never right. We have the information. We really do. However, it doesn't change the fact that they think they're right. And that's important. That's an important fact that you've got to consider. It doesn't matter that their information is wrong. It doesn't matter that they're operating on misperceptions or misunderstandings or flat-out lies. You know, like I've seen some online programs market things that if that were done in our state, that'd be fraud. You know, some of those get-rich-quick, late-night programs or whatever, those are terrible things. I've seen it on cable TV, you know, flip this house or whatever, and they're actively hiding flaws in the home, major, serious flaws that they don't ever tell anybody about. But our clients watch that TV show and they think, hey, we could do that. They might be operating under that information. You know they're wrong. They think they're right. Okay? You coming up with a flat answer that makes them feel stupid or arguing with them about it is usually the last line of defense that you want to go to. You want to ask questions. You want to find out, is that really their major concern? You want to acknowledge that they've got a legitimate concern. If they saw it on TV, hey, that's legitimate. You know, that's a real life cable show. I've seen it before too. Okay, get on the same page with them. Work together with them to find solutions to these things. I understand that you want a lower commission, or that you want to pay a lower commission, but I also understand that you want to sell the house and you want to get top dollar for that. And for that to happen, we've got to get the very most exposure possible. So which one is most important to you? Getting top dollar for your home or paying 1% less in commission? Well, we want to get top dollar. Okay, do you think my program would get that for you? Okay, great. Use some of these other tools. All right? Guys, thanks for joining me today. Again, this is a brand new training session for me. I've never done handling objections before. If this is valuable for you, if there's other questions that you would like to see, again, please feel free to email me, eric.lee@equityutah.com. Check out my YouTube channel. Let me see if there's any other comments here. Nope, just comments of thanks. You're welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me. We will see you online next week, and have a great weekend.